welcome and a very good afternoon to everyone. What we really wanted to do, and maybe this is the first time that we are doing these kind of talks in this fashion. So we've done a lot, we meet all our customers, but this is the first time that our marketing team is so deeply involved. Very interesting to see the kind of stuff that's happening around. So let me first begin by welcoming Michael Meucci, and actually my first question is going to be to introduce yourself. So if you could talk a little bit about yourself, your journey, how did you reach where you are, and you're a very young CEO, so maybe it'll be inspiring for everyone to know your journey to this point. So yeah, sure. All yours.
I'm Michael Meucci. I'm the president and CEO of Arcadia. I'm not as young as I look, or maybe I'm not as young as I feel, but I found myself as the CEO of the business because we had an idea about 15 years ago that we wanted to change the way US healthcare delivered care, and we wanted them to use data to deliver that care. And if you backtrack 15 years in the United States, the big trends were large-scale technology transformation and implementation of electronic health records, catalyzed by meaningful use, where there was tremendous government subsidy pouring into the healthcare sector to encourage the adoption of technology. And anytime there's big government subsidy, people chase that money, and we were two of those people who chased that money, trying to find how we could carve a little slice of it off for ourselves. Over the last 15 years, we've built a really scaled healthcare business that's serving customers like Cigna and Aetna, the state of California. We touch hundreds of millions of patient encounters per year. We work with some of the leading healthcare institutions in the country, all unified around one mission, which is really activating your data, your healthcare data, as a member of your workforce, and using that data to provide better experiences for patients, for providers, and for all stakeholders across the care continuum. My background personally is sales and marketing, so I learned early that I can talk a lot, and people like to talk to me, and so I decided that I was a bad technologist and a good orator, and I used that as my superpower to find myself in a position to convince really inspirational healthcare institutions to buy our tech platform. Today, the business employs almost 500 people around the world, including the members of the Citius tech team, which has been a really productive partnership for us. As I mentioned, we work with the leading brands in US healthcare, who are all working together to change the way that our healthcare system works for the better. And I'm so lucky to work with a number of colleagues who, some of them are here with me today, who have been with the business as long as I have, and are equally dedicated to that cause. And most of the time, my colleagues are much better technologists than I am.
But that's the difference, right? You have actually got them all together and you know who to pick up. So yes, those are important traits, and appreciate your journey. It's absolutely wonderful.
So question from me. First of all, thank you for coming to India. Thank you for spending time, and thank you for sharing your view of the organization. So healthcare is notorious for very slow change. Things that seem to make sense take a long time. But if you were to bet on 3 things that will transform healthcare in the US and which happened faster than most people think, from your vantage point, what are those 3 trends?
There was a McKinsey study that came out 2 years ago that ranked a quotient of major economic contributors on how technologically mature they were. And healthcare ranked 3rd to last. The only worse industries were the industrials like oil and gas production, and the public sector. And in the United States, if you've ever had to renew your driver's license, or if you've been a visa holder, you know that our public sector technology is terrible. Healthcare is only marginally better. The thing that I'm excited about, though, is by and large, healthcare over the last century wasn't under as much pressure as it is today. And pressure is a really unique force. Pressure can both turn rock into dust, but it also can turn carbon into diamonds. And so I think you have to frame your reference point that pressure can generate a lot of really beautiful things. You just have to know how to harness that pressure. And what I'm most excited about over the next 10 years is, one, from a technology perspective, the promise of generative AI combined with the vast amount of data that we've effectively really only started to cultivate over the last decade. You needed ubiquitous adoption of EHRs, and we've effectively reached that point in the United States where 90+% of care providers are using an electronic platform, and they're using it pretty well. Early days, it was really hit or miss, but it's gotten a lot more consistent. And that's created this massive data foundation that can be used to build and train both small and large language models. And there is a ton of experimentation going on around how those models can be used to chip away at the administrative burden that exists across the US healthcare system. So I think the trend of, one, bigger data sets, more combined data sets with the power of AI to ease administrative burden will free up executive mind space to think about innovating on the next care revolution. I think another trend that's really positive is in the US, we've spent a lot of time thinking about how to reduce barriers to care. The pandemic, while certainly awful for the human toll, was a massive accelerator for the way we think about innovation. My mother, let's just say she is not super technology savvy, but I remember in the pandemic, she had an opportunity to do a virtual visit. She never would have done that if she wasn't forced to because she couldn't leave the home or it wasn't safe for her to go into a hospital for a routine appointment. And now that she's done that, it's become a really preferred way of her receiving care. And so the pandemic in a lot of ways catalyzed consumerism in healthcare where, you know, you can open your phone and you can order a Starbucks and it's at your door in 10 minutes, or you can have Uber Eats deliver a meal in 20 minutes. But getting healthcare required calling your doctor or, you know, driving into a city, finding parking. That's a much easier prospect in the United States than it is in Mumbai, but even still, it's very annoying. And a lot of times you don't need to go to the doctor's office. You just need to talk to someone. And so the digital health innovation and adoption was an unlock. Virtual care existed before the pandemic, but it was really the pandemic that introduced it and forced it across large sects of the population. So I think that the opportunity to use virtual care more effectively as a really big part of care delivery is really exciting. And I think the last piece is policy. You know, we're in an election year in the US, and every election year that I've lived through running this business has been one where healthcare is on the ballot, meaning there's a discussion of, are we going to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which allowed the extension of healthcare benefits to broader populations in the US? It's kind of nice that it's not. What's actually happened is both the left and the right have kind of unified that healthcare is an area and a sector that needs to innovate and needs to evolve, and we need to share data more freely. Sure, the left and the right have different ideas on like what the system should look like long term, but in the short term, what there is unity around is data sharing, collaboration, and the adoption of more value-based models. And so those three trends, the data and generative AI, the adoption of virtual care, and the policy really looking to evolve the way we pay for care and how we think about the long-term sustainability of cost, they kind of all work together. And it creates like a very promising future for care. And again, I said I like to talk, so I have to add a fourth, which is we live in a time where drug technology is absolutely wild. GLP-1 drugs are going to be as transformative as statins were in the 90s. If you look at the cardiac events in the 90s compared to today, after the broad adoption of the statin drugs, it's wildly down. If you look at the massive decline in BMI for patients who are adherent to a GLP, I think we have a game-changing set of pharmaceutical products. We are very close to an HIV vaccine at the global level. We developed a COVID vaccine in a year. I heard the CIO of Pfizer talking about how that would have taken 10 years without AI. You have cancer drugs that are more effective and less toxic than ever. And you have a cancer moonshot where we have a cervical cancer vaccine that is deployed at scale in countries like New Zealand, where they've eradicated cervical cancer through widespread vaccination. And that's phenomenal. Like, we live in a time where the medical technology, not just in digital technology, but drug technology, it promises to change the world. And it's going to open up a whole new set of problems because it will increase longevity. I think they said the first person who's going to live to 150 has already been born. And that's like a fascinating psychosocial problem we have to think about. I don't think you can retire at 65 if you're going to live to 150.
I was going to retire at 52, but
Wow.
I'm 35. So, it's generally accepted that healthcare organizations are not the best in using data and analytics to run their business. They're not data driven in their decision making, and there are a variety of obstacles. Arcadia is a company that's breaking that. You are kind of leading that change. So from your perspective, what are you doing to help all of these leading healthcare organizations overcome barriers and truly become data driven in their decision making and way of running the organization? What are you doing? What's the secret sauce that you're applying?
Arguably, we're doing the same thing that Citius Tech is doing. We're meeting our customers where they are. When we started the business, it was pretty rare for our customers to have software engineers or data engineers on staff. Today, it's really common. Healthcare is an increasingly digital industry. But we were talking about this earlier today, that the leading healthcare institutions in the United States are becoming technology companies. I would argue most businesses are becoming technology companies. I travel a lot for business, and a couple of months ago, Delta Airlines had a really catastrophic outage following the CrowdStrike incident. And it shows how much of our global business institutions rely on technology and how much they need to invest in technology. So I think as we at Arcadia, what we're trying to do is to make sure that an organization who has decided that they want to build and maintain a set of technologies to own their digital experience have the acceleration tools to do that rapidly in a cost-effective manner using high-quality trusted data. At the same time, there are organizations that don't have the money or the desire to be builders of technology, but they want to be high-efficiency users of technology. We want to make sure that an organization like Intermountain Healthcare or Cigna, who build their own solutions, can do that on top of our platform in a way that they're serving their business platforms the highest quality insights and data. At the same time, an organization who may have more limited resources or more operate on a local scale or have a different mission alignment. Like, we work with a lot of community health centers that serve low income and at-risk communities. They don't want to build technology, they want to serve their communities, and they're very mission oriented. We want to make sure that they have an end-to-end technology platform that allows them to accelerate that mission. And then ultimately, regardless of where you are on that spectrum, we want to make sure that we are your partner to help you succeed in mission delivery. We want to help you make money. We want to help you provide the best possible care to your patients. We want you to be innovative, and we want you to have access to the best data.
So actually that brings me to the next question, which you kind of answered pretty much as you spoke about. So from a vision perspective, you already talked about what Arcadia wants to do. How do you see yourself being perceived by the industry, by the world, in 2 years' time, maybe 2027, maybe 2028? How do you expect your organization to change, your value system to change, given all these changes and the disruption in technology as well?
It's a great thought exercise. If you rewind, we started the business helping optimize around meaningful use. And if you think about the last 10 years, we've spent a lot of time helping our customers bring together vast amounts of data and use that data to accelerate value-based care, accelerate integrated care models. And as we think about where we are right now, we're investing really heavily in high precision analytics, high scale analytics, helping our customers build and deploy new models. What I think you'll see over the next 2 years is a further spike on using analytics to help deliver new and novel care models. Healthcare is innovating at a really rapid pace. The federal government in the United States is continuing to define new experiments. We love a healthcare experiment in the United States, not in the sense of like experimenting on citizens, but a payment model experiment. And that requires an immense amount of insights and analytics to be able to operationalize those programs. And so I think you're going to continue to see us thinking about how we can be faster deliverers of analytics. At the same time, we're investing in more APIs, more SDKs to enable our most innovative customers to build unique experiences on our platform. And I think we'll see the fiber of Arcadia's platform integrated in more healthcare endpoints. And that's what we really would like to see, is really being the single most trusted platform for helping to accelerate data-driven innovation in healthcare, whether that is a multi-state hospital system, a national health plan, or a hyper-regional primary care clinic that wants to build a new primary care model for the citizens they serve. I personally want to see us viewed as one of the data good guys. And I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I mean it. Data has to be used for good, and we're entering an era of AI wars, which I liken to the BattleBots. I don't know if anybody knows what the BattleBots are, but it's like these robots with like axes and flamethrowers and saw blades on the front of them. And it was a TV show in like the early aughts where they would fight each other, and whoever robot would survive would win BattleBots. And that's what we're kind of coming into with a lot of the generative AI wars. You're gonna have a health plan prior auth generative AI robot arguing with the health system generative AI robot. And it's like, who has the better robot? And the problem with that is that there's a patient sitting between those two robots, and there's someone who needs care experience. And I like to think that we can help illuminate between these robots what that human experience is, and how do we make sure that patient's getting the right care at the right time in the right place, and the provider and the payer who are kind of commanding the robots understand that this isn't about winning or losing, it's about providing compassionate care.
Wow, that's an interesting way of looking at it. And honestly, you're right. I mean, at the end of it, while we talk a lot about technology and all of this, sometimes we tend to forget the patient, which is the most important part of the whole journey. So yes, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So with that, I come to the next question, and I know you found it interesting because we were discussing the question before, but how would you advise a 25-year-old Indian youngster to groom their future? And I know you don't know so much about India, but you've been learning last 2-3 days a lot. So how do you look at the Indian youth, and then what do you think is the advice for them to build their career and their future and all of that?
Well, I got a crash course last night on the spirit of entrepreneurship, and how entrepreneurship is a huge motivator for the stimulus of the Indian economy. And what's impressive to me, I spent some time in India probably about a decade ago, and it's been 10 years since I've been here. It's amazing to see just the transformation of the country. And I drive through, seems like 20 hours driving through Mumbai. I think it's really only like 4, but the amount of construction is absolutely insane to me. Like, there's a crane everywhere, there's a backhoe everywhere, there's roads, there's subways, there's buildings. Like, it's insane how much development is happening. It seems like all at once. And I think that creates an immense amount of opportunity, because the United States, for better or for worse, feels a little stagnant. And I think that in these periods of rapid development creates so much opportunity. I did have to ask the question. I said, what is the average 25-year-old worry about? I spent a lot of time younger trying to hone skills that I thought I needed. I said tongue-in-cheek earlier, I'm not a great technologist. I'm not. I'm a bad software engineer. And I spent some time really introspective trying to fix that. But I always knew I was a good orator, I was a good communicator, I was a good connector. And it took me a while to realize that by leaning into that, I would unlock a lot of opportunities. So one of my favorite books is the Strengths Finder, now Find Your Strengths, which is all about find out what you're good at and spend 80% of your time getting better at what you're good at, because it's much easier to get better at what you're good at than it is to fix something that you're bad at. Not to ignore your weaknesses, but to really lean into your strengths. And I wish I would have spent more time in my early 20s leaning into my strengths. I would have had a more productive love life. I would have had a more productive work life. I probably would have made more money. I think that sometimes we spend so much time looking in the mirror saying, I don't like this thing about me. And I'll joke about my hair. Like when I started to lose my hair, I tried to do all the things, the pills, the creams, the whole thing. And then finally one day I shaved my head. I'm like, oh, I look great. I wish I did this earlier. And so I think that you have to be able to lean in and own who you are. So my advice is, find out what you enjoy and find out what you're good at and spike on that.
So that's truly valuable, because honestly, I mean, like you said, people try to keep finding faults and we do all kinds of SWOT analysis. But the thing is that we don't realize that our strengths is what makes us stronger. So I think that was a great advice. So with that, we'll do something which we've not shared with you.
I know.
So we're going to put you in a
nervous.
spot. But we are nice. We have very nice questions. So we have a rapid fire, and you obviously don't have a lot of time to answer those.
Okay.
All right. So we are going real quick. So if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would that be?
Abraham Lincoln.
Wow, and why?
Please invite me to that.
And why?
Because he's a change maker. Sometimes the most impactful, some of the most impactful things in the world are so unpopular. Abraham Lincoln is credited for driving the end of slavery in the United States, and that was huge. The ethical treatment of all humans is really important. It's a big part of the reason we're in healthcare. We think everyone deserves great healthcare. And Abraham Lincoln did something that was hugely unpopular with half of the country. And the United States is better for it. Unequivocally, the fact that everyone has opportunity in the United States, and I think that that's just remarkable and so admirable. And I would love to know what it was like living in the United States when it was 13 colonies or 13 states or whatever it was at that time. Bad historian. I don't work on that strength. I just would love to meet him.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great personality to meet. So now coming to Mumbai, what is the one thing in Mumbai that surprised you a lot? I mean, just in a good way or a bad way?
Yeah, there's a lot that surprised. There's a lot that surprised me. It's like I'm trying to find the one. I was at the fish market at 5:15 this morning, and I was blown away by so many things, but just the function and dysfunction. It's remarkable watching, these guys unload fish from these boats, put them into baskets, and then throw the baskets off the boat up onto the dock. Not a single fish drops, and you're like, I can't even throw laundry into the hamper without a sock dropping. And they got 30 kilos of fish. And then you've got the cats eating the shrimp that have fallen. It's like this whole closed ecosystem that just works, and it's just amazing.
Wow, so that's the takeaway from Mumbai, and that's the right one. We are a seashore, so yes. All right, and then a very different question, but what's your favorite rom-com movie? I haven't framed this question, okay?
I'm not a rom-com guy.
That's why we put that.
I don't know. 27 Dresses? I don't know. I think going back to the 25-year-old thing, you've got this Katherine Heigl character who's always a bridesmaid, never a bride, and always trying to solve someone else's problem without focusing on her strength. So I don't know. That's the first movie that came to my mind too.
So with that, you probably answered the last question, but then now you have to give us a different answer. So what is your stress buster for the day? How do you de-stress on a very busy, long, tiring day?
I live in a beach community, and I like my beach walks. And so, about once a day, no matter if it's raining or sunny, the middle of the winter when, in Boston, the sun sets at 3:30 in the winter, you get done with calls, you go walk across the street onto the beach and, walk the dogs. It's a nice stress buster. It's a nice transition too, especially since now we all really work from home. Being able to get out and have that transition is really nice.
Okay, so wonderful. I think this was it from us, but thank you so much. I think you answered with all the right spirit and excitement. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you everybody for joining in.
Thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
fun.
We had fun. Absolutely.